What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. This episode is brought to you by On Hand VAs, your go-to for client-facing, office-based virtual assistants. Systemized onboarding process is key to seamlessly integrating VAs into your insurance agency. My name is Stephen Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance Services in Clinton, New York, and I am joined by my co-host today, the one and only, you already know, hold your applause, Mr. Sean Fitzgerald, founder of LAF Advisors in Long Island, New York. What's up, Sean? We got a little different view of you today.
Yeah. To shoot the podcast from my office today, which doesn't have a fancy Sony A6400 camera. It's got the good old webcam camera that's built into the laptop.
Back to the roots, baby. Back to the roots.
I'm feeling like a real Scratch agent right now, that's for sure.
How is the new office going? You got to bring the setup there, or what's the plan? I know you've only been there for what, 6 months or so?
Yeah, only a couple months, but things are well. You know how, Stephen, you just recently did this. You got to do so many updates, right? On Google Maps, you got to update your licenses. There's so many different things. I don't know if you even did any of that stuff, but you have so much stuff you got to update. So, it's going, man. It's I like it because it's where my family is. It's where I network. It's just a more centralized location where my prior office was. It was so out of the way. So this just makes life so much more efficient.
Yeah, if anybody from Google Maps is listening, you're not our friend. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, that's it.
We'll leave it at that. We're going to get right into today's show. Super excited to have a friend of the show on today, Ryan Englund, founder of Englund Insurance Group. Ryan, thanks for joining us today. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yeah, you did.
Was that close enough?
Yep.
Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time. Let's just start with, tell us the story of yourself. I know you got a Scratch agent going on. You're building it with your son, and we want to get into the nitty gritty of all that. But let's learn a little bit about Ryan, your background, yourself, insurance background, that stuff, and then we'll work through the topics we want to talk about.
Yeah, I'm out here in Utah. My family started a hardware store when I was 5 years old. The old school before the big box store skin. So I was always in the family business, and swore I'd never be in business. But time came to shut that down. Moved into some sales roles. Didn't see much growth potential, and dating myself back in the classifieds. See an insurance ad for a captive agency, and you know what? I had a 4-year-old and a newborn, and somebody was willing to give me a shot if I signed on the dotted line, and I signed. Jumped right in, and I'm here 25 years later. So that to me is the win. It was a little different. You know, I wasn't the guy that did the 15-hour days, missed my kids' first steps. I didn't miss anything. I didn't miss a game, let alone a practice. I coached the kids in every sport. Loved what I did as a parent, you know, and wouldn't change that for anything, really. We had a comfortable agency after 4.5 years before I made the jump.
Ryan, what captive? Said it was captive, or was it a farmer's or?
Yeah, it was farmers.
So you had the captive agency for 24.5 years?
Yep.
So you had. So that from scratch, the farmer's agency, or did you purchase that?
Nope. I started at scratch.
Okay. So 24 years. Talk to us about that before we get into the Scratch agency today and all that. I mean, building it, I want to obviously building the farmer's agency versus the Scratch independent agency. I want to talk about that, but talk to us about the early days of farmers and building the team and some lessons you maybe learned through that and what those early years were like. And then we can certainly compare that to what we're going through now and different things with the independent side.
Yeah, of course. It's, looking back, it really was a plug and play. I mean, you had training, you had a district manager that was in the same building, but, you know, it wasn't even web-based. You know, we paid for the AS400, the green screens. I took every morning, I would apps and tear apart and throw away the carbon. So I had 2 of them because I didn't need the car. And you would open up the phone book, and I know there's probably people listening to this single and phone book. I don't even know what you're talking about, but you start a day. And when the next phone book came out, I started a day. I never made it to Z. I just kept going through it. and there was always somebody to call. It was, in a sense, it was easy to call people. You knew that if you called at 6, 7 p.m., they'd have to get up from the dinner table and go over and answer the phone. And some of them were pissed, but you got them, could reach them. So in that way, it was easy. A couple years in, they had a web system, still ran on the back end by the old school stuff, but at least we had it. We had emails. We had some different things. Crazy to say that we didn't have those at the beginning. But you would go to the kitchen tables of the clients. We went into their house and we gathered information. And then we came back with printed off quotes, from the dot matrix printer. We showed them the quotes. Things look good. You submit the app online. We at least could do that. But there was no instant MVRs. We would find out 2 weeks later that something's declined or the rates double. In a way, it was tough. It was easy. I wouldn't be here. The training is fantastic. Yeah. You learn. I really truly believe you learn to sell on value. You have one product. You don't have any other choice but to learn it way. And I love that because I brought that into the new agency too, and we do. But starting from going to kitchen tables to finally getting people to come to your office, that was a real milestone for me. I was like, wow, I don't have to drive all over the place and going to people's stinky houses or crazy stuff. And then it kind of got to the point where it was, I don't want people to come to the office. And I don't mean that wrong. It was, I'm looking ahead 20 years with my boys that were deciding that they wanted into this. And I said, this isn't how it's going to be done in 20 years. Brick and mortar and people walking in, sitting down and doing a review. It's not happening anymore. So when we had the opportunity to sell, we sold. We took it.
And so when was that that you sold, John?
I sold December 31st of last year, of 22. Oh, okay. 22. So last year was I had just finished 1 year.
Gotcha.
And Ryan, did you have a team? Was it just you or?
Yeah, from time to time, we always tried to have a licensed CSR probably after about year 7. I probably did 7 years by myself. And it was easy because I wrote it. So when the service came in, I remembered it. I remember these people. And so we did it as long as we could. And then there was turnover from time, but we always tried to have a licensed one from there on. We had gone through telemarketers back in the day when you could make phone calls still. I have a couple kids in there from time to time that would bang the phones.
Yeah. I can relate to I wasn't completely captive when I was with Nationwide, but I remember when I was 21 and I first got there and they put me on the computer system and it was that green, I guess they called it DOS back then. Yeah. So I go on the computer and I got my mouse, I'm trying to use my mouse and the mouse isn't working anywhere. And I'm like, guys, I don't understand what's happened. The mouse isn't working. And they're like, you don't use a mouse on DOS. I'm like, huh? And then they were telling me you got to use tab and space. I'm like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
23, 22 does this in this spot or that spot.
Oh my God. But imagine now a 21-year-old coming into your agency and you got to explain to them what DOS is and talk about instant turn off, right?
Oh yeah.
So that was just a funny story I want to share. And then from the training side of things, I do feel like that's one area where Nationwide shined when I started with them. They had solid training. They had a training to teach you about auto insurance, home insurance, life insurance. There was a constant, agent meetups that were going on in the area. So I feel like that is one big strength and kind of why I'm happy that I started in a captive spot too, because I felt like that training was invaluable, Yeah.
I mean, if a couple years in, you start thinking, did I make the right decision? Should I have done that? Those all thoughts come into your mind, but it was good. It was, there's no feelings there whatsoever. It just the model. I could see the model wasn't working anymore.
Ryan, talk to me about Talk to me about, so I know you mentioned you did some like calling, calling just straight phone book to prospect some new business. Is there anything you did at the captive agency from a prospecting standpoint that you're still doing at this independent agency that's working for you?
On the commercial side, yeah. I mean, I'll
Yeah,
still just get out and walk. I'll walk into businesses.
I like that.
That part was the same. I
Yeah.
had a sales job before I got into insurance, and it
Mhm.
was it was selling commercial tires. You saw someone that had a dump truck, or you saw a shop or something, you just walked in. Who do I talk
Yeah.
to?
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
that's the name, and I still part of it. I don't get to do it as much right now, trying to do all sides and
Yeah.
business owner stuff on this new agency, but that's probably the only thing because the rest of it is so different.
Yeah, I like that. When you walk in places, is it a specific business you're walking into? Or is there like two or three things like you make sure, hey, I'm going to walk into these auto repair shops, or like is it a
Yeah,
specific
it's
list?
things that I know. Lifetime ago, I was a server at a restaurant, so I know
Okay.
restaurants. Um, and so I'm a little more picky now. We don't want the brand new
Yeah.
restaurant that's going to fail, but
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, you know what to say. I know the lingo. Maybe auto repair probably is one that I don't know as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I know auto and I know repair, but do I know it as good
Yeah.
as I do some of
The
the others?
garage
But
keepers and all that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, I like talking to owners. And to be honest, business owners will talk to you. Maybe not that day, right?
Yeah.
But it's an expense, and
So
they'll talk to you.
before we get into the new agency, I want to back up just a little bit in the comments of that both of you were saying about it being different. I would argue that it's different, but it's the same. And I want with your industry, Ryan. I want your thoughts and to hear your comments on this. But I always tell people like our video proposals are the modern way of sitting at your dining room table, right? Like we can still sit down and go line by line or still highlight specific coverages, and you come back and say, I want more information on garage keepers. To Sean's point, we can do a whole video on that and walk through that, right? And send it back. And maybe that's easier for the client or whatever. But I think because like I came from a legacy agency too, where we're walking in the office, you'd still go to Mrs. Smith's house because we've been going to Mrs. Smith's house for 40 years. So you're not going to break her heart and not show up and bring her yearly calendar and all that stuff, right? So, but and now what I'm doing now with T5 and all the new tools, toys, and this digital stuff and all of this, there's still pieces of that still remind me of kind of what I was doing at the prior agency and different things. I'm curious of your thoughts on those comments, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, we're still at the kitchen table, but it's on Zoom, it's on Teams. I would say that I'm doing those calls more than on the telephone. Like I really don't talk on the phone as
Mhm.
much. It may be to set something up, but hey, let's get on a call. Just like this, we're sitting there together around the table, and so there's a lot of similarities in that respect. And we still use the words 5-6 times in a conversation. It's the same presentation that it's always been. Is what do we have to protect? Okay, let's put together a program to do that. And so
Yeah.
that you're right. It is similar. It's just the technology, or I don't have to drive there, and it saves time and can get more done in a day. That's always nice. Um,
Yeah.
I hate to say, and I never want to say COVID was a good thing, but we've all known what it. I tried doing Zoom reviews back when it was, hey, come in for annual review, captives do it, annual review, right? I'm not saying don't, but not like captives. They really beat that into you, and people do. They just kept coming in less and less every year. So I said, okay, we're gonna send out everybody. We're gonna set up a Zoom review. Zero response, zero prior to COVID. No
This
one
was
would,
at Farmers.
yeah, yeah. No
Yeah,
one
it's
would get
interesting.
on a camera, and back then
Hmm.
they just weren't going to do it. And
Yeah.
so now it's normal. It's
Yeah.
normal, and they do it. And between that and video proposals,
Yeah,
still,
it's fun. It's funny. I haven't like, sounds crazy. I've utilized Zoom for, dealing with carriers and marketing reps and, you know, networking and stuff like that, but I haven't utilized it working with clients. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but
I haven't
my
either, to be honest with you.
yeah,
Now that I think about it.
my I think I utilize proposals so much, whether it's commercial, personal, whether it's for a renewal review or just to answer a question. You know, I found that to be the most helpful for me. And if it's a large account, I do want to try at least once to get in, get in with them and go to their place of business and take some pictures and show that I can provide that professional touch. And now I'm not saying to do that for a tiny, under $5,000 premium account, but you start looking at the middle market accounts. To me, it makes sense to do that. And I personally, I've done it ways. Like when I first started at Nationwide and I did commercial, I specialized in auto repair. Every single appointment was in person, every single one.
Mm-hmm.
Now I would say 1 out of 10 are maybe I go in person once. It's really rare. But the ones I go in person, I see a huge shift in like how quickly they trust you because they get to read your body language, they get to see you. I feel like your personality shines more when you're in person. So I still believe in it. I just think you have to know the right time to deploy that. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Well, I think the beauty of it too is that you can meet the customer where they want to be met.
Yeah,
you can offer,
exactly.
and especially if we talk about commercial and bigger accounts where you're willing to go out and meet with them and take the time to do that. I think, once I started using Risk Advisor, I was never asking, before that, I was never asking the customer, what's your contact preference? And once I started, and Risk Advisor has that as one of the first questions for the agency, what's your contact preference, text, phone, or email? And like, I have noticed when I ask people that there's like a pause, like what, but you think about that from the advisory standpoint, all this talk about being the trusted advisor. One of the first questions I'm asking is, what's the best way for us to contact you on your terms? How do you want to be contacted?
Great question.
How do you want to, and it kind of, and once I met that shift of asking that every time, I can notice people kind of getting set back a little, like, oh, that's kind of cool. All right, fine. Text me. Yeah. I'd rather have you text me, and I think, just, it's such an interesting conversation. It's like the Amazon of the world has made everything that we wanted so quicker and so faster. And we talk about, Ryan's introduction there talking about the phone book, or, finding out 2 weeks later that something's going to be declined. It's like mind blowing, right? If I found out 2 weeks later someone's declined, I have a heart attack, right? But I've never known anything different because it's that we want it now. The clients want it now. We need the answers, and it's changed the complete way of doing business on all fronts. So I just think, it's super interesting conversation. But Ryan, let's get into the Scratch Agency. So December 31st, 2022, the Farmer's Door shut. You sell that agency. What's January 1st look like? Let's walk through that.
We had spent quite a bit of time. So it really goes back about 4 years prior to that we wanted to sell. And there's just not a lot of buyers. A couple deals fell through. But I met some independent agents at a Houston marketing event and spent a few days and learned that they were all captive at one time. I went, okay, yeah, that's true. And we started doing the research, 4 years ago. Before that, we had agencies Zoom probably 6 years now. So, 5 at Farmers, and it was, we want our data, we want our information, we want the pipelines and automation. No, that's not what Farmers does, but that's what our agency did. So we were ahead of the game with the CRM. We had a database. We had people that we could call. We had people that we could call at 1 year and at 2 years, depending on this non-compete. We had different people. So we had people to call. We had an AMS. We had a rater. We didn't have any carriers. January 2nd, we started calling, and sending out the applications that they wanted to the right places. And when you fill out an application that says, you've all seen them, how much premium do you have? What are your top 3 carriers? What am I supposed to put?
Right.
And real quick, I realized I was getting, we're not appointing agents right now. And this wasn't summer 2023. What happened? This was early enough that I said, okay, well, that isn't working. So I just found the local rep and said, hey, let's meet, let's get on a phone call, let's do something, and was able to sell me to them, tell my story. It's 25 years in the same town I grew up in. It's an exploding county in a state. So all of a sudden I started getting appointments. I was like, okay, this is how we need to do this. And so we had some insure techs to begin with. They were the quick ones, right? And then Then you grabbed Nationwide. That was going to be. No, we all know what happened there. I didn't end up writing a thing there, but just started adding some carriers, and we're able to start quoting. And the first policy was my son issued his own policy, and we're like, okay, we're rolling. And then we felt like we actually had an agency, but it was very limited in the carriers we had.
Mm-hmm.
I just kept. It's all I did for 3 months. I think was just talk to carriers, talk to reps, figuring out Ivans, figuring out, all of these pieces to the puzzle because I couldn't sell. I hear a lot of stories about people that do all of this setting up, they don't sell, versus the person that goes and sells a bunch and then sets up their systems. I think it's my personality. I knew what I wanted to build as far as a tech stack before January 1st. I knew what it was going to be. But not having carriers, what else are you going to do? You might as well keep building it and changing it and getting it set up. So then we ended up getting a few major national carriers and started selling stuff in about 8. June comes and it shuts down. Non-resident licenses shut down. Things started happening that way, and underwriting started tightening up. But that was kind of that first few months was just trying to get carriers because we did it direct.
Yeah. Did you look into the aggregator at all?
I did. And we're part of one. We're part of the AC.
Okay.
It's not day one. You have access to all these carriers. It's
yeah.
You're going to get direct carriers. You're going to get. That's the way I wanted to build it because it was a long play. I didn't know what was going to happen summer 2023 and carriers shutting down, pulling out, and the mess there. But I still know that the long term, 15 years down the road, I need to be able to exit. My sons can continue. I wanted the full premium and was willing to take this challenge. And it's, as I say, it's been a lot rougher. A lot of people ask questions about, should I do it? I absolutely love the decision I made with the network I'm with. But would I tell somebody to do it right now? No. It's not the model. It's not. You can't get appointments now.
Yeah.
So you want to make the jump right now, you might want to look at somebody that's going to give you some carrier access immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's introduce ourselves a little more to the agency itself. One of the things I love about your story is that you're building this with your sons. I've been very open with the biggest challenge that I've had with starting my scratch agency and leaving my family agency was not being able to work with my father. I'm lucky my father and I have a good relationship, but I very much enjoyed that and miss that daily. And we're just building two different things, and that's completely fine. But I love the fact you hear of the son joining the father's agency and then they're going to take over or something like that. You guys are building this together, and it comes with its own set of challenges, which I'm sure, and we can get into, but it must be an incredible feeling to kind of go through that, with your sons together and say, hey, we're building this together. Our wins are our wins together and all that stuff. So talk to us a little bit more about that, the agency setup, how it's operating right now, and a little more about that experience over the last year or so.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Isaac, 2 sons, Isaac and Kyle. Youngest Isaac was with me at Farmers for the last couple of years there. Started as a marketer when he was in college. It was whenever you can work, whenever you can make calls, requotes, just here's the system. And he learned it, as he was walking through his college days, and graduated, marketing degree. Said, what do you want to do? He said, I want to be a business owner. Okay. Yeah, that's exactly it. And so he said, it sounds funny now. He says, going through COVID, I'm watching that. The insurance industry was the most stable industry out there. Like, this is it. I'm in. And he graduated and wanted in. And I said, okay, then we have to sell because we can't be 10X where we're at. Mm-hmm. It's just not happening. Farmers was not in a spot.
A lot of restrictions,
for that to happen. So I said, okay, if you're in, you're in. My oldest son, Kyle, said he had done some PNC stuff, hated it, just wasn't it. And he said, hey, you guys get that thing launched. I want to run the life side of it. I want to do life financial services. And I said, okay. So we put together that. Me and Isaac from day one kind of split duties of building it, meaning tech stack. Ivan, he handled Ivan's, he handled website, he handled the mobile app, he did some stuff, GMB, and then I handled carrier relations. And so we kind of split the operation stuff. And then as we got carriers, we just wrote what we wrote, each of us.
Sure.
We service our own for now. And then got to the point where we're getting the live side was all set up. So we can, in personal lines conversations, commercial lines conversations, the live comes up. And so we can just, hey, okay, we're going to transfer you more or less over to Kyle. He's going to call you. What days work for you? And that's our goal, is to put him on his calendar. We're kind of messing with some final expense stuff. Really, he kind of wants to maybe dive into it even deeper. So we're doing some lead gen and stuff ourselves for that, for him. Once he could make enough money that he sees that he can leave his day job, then we really have the three of us.
Sure.
Isaac will handle PNC. Kyle can handle the life. And
Nice.
that's my dream right there, is to build that. So I walk away, in a sense, I'm not going to 65 years old, quit selling insurance. We'll still do some accounts, do some, consulting things.
Sure.
Like, I'm going to be real bored if I don't do something, but I want to be able to step aside and watch them take this and run.
Cool. For the life insurance, Stephen, life insurance, the first thing I think about is there's a life insurance guy in my BNI group that just freaking cleans house every meeting. Like every meeting, he's like, "Thank you for closed business to this person, this person, this person." He writes so much from BNI, and I think because it's such a focus, like he's one line of business, life insurance. Everybody knows what he does. He has one, his one or two carriers, and it's just like a seamless process for him. So I'm curious, how are you guys drumming up life business? Is it from some networking stuff, or is it like current PNC clients that you're trying to cross sell? Is it a mix of both? I'm curious.
It's a mix of both. I'll BNI when we're done with this one, and I need the live seat. I did not take the commercial seat. We started a founding chapter, so we went in 3.5 months. We're at 21 as of today. I'm bringing in a commercial guy. I took the personal line seat. I'm still going to write commercial. I'm still going to write live.
Yeah.
Right? On our marketing dollars, but the BNI is going to get the referrals that it. We've gone as far as running final expense ads on Facebook, and then just the cross sell. Everybody we talk to, we're already talking assets. And it doesn't matter if it's commercial or personal lines. We're already talking assets because we've got no liability limits, and so I already know their information. It's really easy to say, okay, do you have enough life insurance to cover this amount of assets? The answer is no every time. So have a review with Kyle. Business plan. That's the way we're going after it. And it's working. And like coming from the side where you had managers cramming it down your throat. You sell this amount of life insurance.
Yeah. Can I stop you right there real quick? Because I think that was super valuable. So if I'm writing someone's home, auto, umbrella policy, whatever the case is, and it's a new purchase, like Stephen does a lot of new purchases, right? I come across those a lot too. So when you give them the policy, like when are you introducing life insurance? Like at the point of sale? Like when you're giving the homeowner's proposal afterwards?
We throw some teasers in at that point, but
Gotcha.
only that. We don't, lender referrals are great. I always talk to them. I'm not the guy that just sends it over to the lender. What do you want? Here you go. No, and to be honest, I talk to almost all of them on Zoom.
So
and here's the policy, and we're going through it. And I keep kind of throwing in, and we'll get to that.
So do you have enough coverage to protect your assets? That's the question you're asking.
The rule of thumb, right? So if we're talking auto, it seems like auto is the right place to say this. The state says we have to have insurance, but really the reason we have insurance is to protect the stuff we have from someone taking it if we screw up.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's the whole thing. It's simple. So, John Doe, you're telling me that your assets don't exceed $100,000 because this quote's 100, 300. You're telling me that, right? Shut up. And they're going to tell you no. And we write above 100, 300, 88% of the time. It was the last time I ran the report. We don't write monoline. It's just not who we're talking to. And talk assets, and then automatically
I throw that in there.
Oh, Okay, so you really do need 250. We'll say, I know you owned that house for 8 years. Have you refinanced it? No. Okay, so you probably got $300,000 of equity in it, right? He nods his head, and okay, so we start tacking this on. All right, so that tells me that you probably have $750,000 to $1 million of life insurance. No. Okay,
Silence.
we're gonna talk. Not yet.
Yeah.
But we have Kyle, who's our life specialist. He's going to talk about that.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then I think the workflow is day 3-4. Task is generated to him. If we get him on the calendar at that point, if they don't say, "Oh yes, please," right now, he just reaches out. Hey, following up on that conversation that you had the other day.
Ryan, I love, and I wrote this down, I love just the question, like even if I'm thinking of an annual review of somebody, who owns a home and has multiple vehicles, whatever the case is, and they have 100, 300, right? At my agency, I don't sell anything less than 100, 300, but I would tell you 99% of the people that probably have 100, 300 should probably have 250, 500 with an umbrella,
If not more.
Yeah, with New York being the most litigious state in the country too, next to Florida. So I love the question of, hey, I see you only have 100,000 in auto liability coverage. Is that enough coverage to protect all your assets? And then just shutting up and see what they say.
So you're telling me $100,000 is enough to cover every bit of assets you have?
Yeah, that's
You're
great.
telling me that. Because you're saying I only want 100, 300, or that's apples to apples. Okay, you're telling me that is enough. They know it's not.
Yeah, I love that.
I could tell you in your book, you're right. 99% of them, more than that. I don't know what garnished income laws are in New York, but out here it's 25%. So here's another asset for the young people. You want to live on 75% of your income the rest of your life? All right. Somebody with no assets, physical, meaning a home, things like that, just off their future income losses, need 500 grand. Doesn't mean they buy it, but that's how we say it. And in the packets that go out, if they buy less than that, they sign that we talked about. We advised.
Love that.
You just said we advise them. I think people that don't have that conversation are just kind of afraid to have the conversation or don't want to go, like, it's just transactional. And I mean, we talk about that a lot in this podcast. And one of the things that I love, Ryan, is you're building it correctly from the foundation. You're not, and you've had your 20 something years of experience with farmers, still with your scratch agent. You were saying we're not writing monoline, we're not writing at this limit. Like we talk a lot about, like with Billy Williams and the stat, and like doing the right thing and like trusting the process and building the foundation going forward. And yeah, could we probably write a lot more if we were going to write monoline or write whatever and make more money now, but what's it going to do in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? And that's so important to have the conversation now for the listeners that are starting right now, that are in their first year or whatever, to kind of reevaluate and repivot that plan to make sure that you're building the true agency that's going to help you succeed in the future. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
Such good stuff.
I agree.
It's if I can say anything, and it's to everyone, it doesn't matter how long you've been in the business or new or what, anything. Do you use the word asset in every conversation?
That's so
I'd
good.
say 6 times.
That's great. I got to use it more.
If you're not using and that's how I go after, the incumbent one is talk to you about your assets. No, they never have. Well, we do things differently here. We're going to talk about your assets first, because I said when you go to the doctor and you're not telling me what's ailing you, how's somebody going to help you? How's a doctor going to help prescribe something to you? So if people are not using asset in every conversation, guys, it opens the door to so many things, the life side, and wherever you want to take it, it's up to you. But assets has been huge to us. I don't even know where I learned it. I don't even know where I picked that up. But thank you, whoever I did.
Yeah, right.
It was good.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people you just provided a ton of value bringing that up to that are thinking the same thing, because that is such good stuff. Ryan, as we look to pivot the last question here a little bit, we usually ask a different question, but I'm curious your response to what is something over this last, so it's been about a year and a half, right? What is something over that time of building the scratch agent that's been surprisingly easier than you thought? Talked a lot about the challenges. We talk a lot about the challenges. Established farmers agent of 20 plus years. and then you're looking down the independent lane, and now you're in that lane. What's something that maybe has been surprisingly easier or easier to adapt to, or something that you thought when you were captive?
Being able to market myself how I want.
Mm.
I have no restrictions. I have a website now that I built, and in the old days, there was a website that they just provided. I couldn't
Right.
touch
Yeah.
it. So to be able to do what I want and market how I want, do whatever I want. That
Go
is
after
easy.
the clients you want, set the standards you
chains
want,
are
have the
off.
conversations you want.
There's another
Yeah.
one. Being able to, instead of saying, "Hey, commercial, what's hot? What are you taking today?" Because you're going to not want it next year, but go where I want to go. That is easier as well. You're right. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. I mean, you're owning your own future, which is what we say in the extra here. So that's incredible. Everybody, I think you need to, for anybody that's listening to the episode, rewind that back to the part we talked about the assets there. I mean, that is so valuable. Ryan, I appreciate you coming on the show and for bringing that up. For anybody that wants to follow along in your journey more, just get in touch with you, reach out to you to talk about the great things you talked about here today. What's the best way to do so?
All over social. I'm on Facebook a lot. I'm definitely on LinkedIn. But my cell phone, 801-836-1883. I'm happy to help anyone any way I can, because there's a lot of you out there that help me, and they know who they are. They've helped me.
Cool.
Whatever I can do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for taking the time. Ryan is also in our Scratch Agency community, so make sure to join that. Go to scratchagencypodcast.com, click join the community on the top. It's our Telegram group chat type thing. Lots and lots of good value there. Everybody, that's another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. Most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, in your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.